the people that are giving the talk today are pretty convinced that games can do a lot of things that I think that many people don't think they can do. I'm just, before starting out, I was just out of curiosity, how many people in here think that games could be culture? Raise their hands. That's good, because when I got the question, I was kind of like, that's not really, that's a no question. Obviously, games are culture, obviously this is one of the best and most powerful ways to communicate on a worldwide scale. And I think that increasingly we're seeing that youngsters, children are picking up history, culture, ways of being from more computer games than television, books, radio, schools, etc. So we really need to dig into this area. And I had this, I'm very history interested, and I thought it was quite interesting. I played pretty much all the strategy games that's out there, although not all the ones in French and Spanish, but what was interesting was that there's a ton of games on the US Civil War, and there's actually not really any on the Spanish, the French, the War of the Roses, etc. So when you probably go and ask any teenager, they will probably know more about the US history than they will know about their own history, which I think is a bit interesting to contemplate. What we've been working with in Serious Games Interactive in my company is trying to do games about global conflicts, trying to do a mixture of educational games, documentary games, entertainment games. And we've tried to do that with what might be called quite controversial topics. The first game we did was on global conflicts, Palestine, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which received a lot of attention. And the second one that we just released is global conflicts, Latin America. And I'm gonna try to dig a bit more into the Latin America game and just say a few words on what kind of characterizes that. I think what is interesting when you kind of compare Europe to other places like US, which Pam was also talking about, is that when we show global conflicts in the US and other countries, they're quite surprised that you can actually make a game about stuff like that. So I think that in a lot of ways we're actually more capable of seeing what games can be rather than what they are in Europe. And I think that has a lot to do with, we have quite strong research traditions, we have different ways of conceiving media more broadly, we have a different children's perspective in some countries compared to the US. Can you put on the trailer? So I'm just going to show you a trailer about Latin America, and before starting it, just a few background words for any interested viewers. It was done for something like 350,000 euro. The game is basically what you can call a cheap version of Heavy Rain. You play a journalist. The journalist arrives in a conflict zone. This is in Latin America, and they have to dig up a story. And while digging up that story, they will learn about the problems, issues that faces that region. I'll let you do a few shots. The idea is very much that you basically, the three-quarter of the game is interviewing, gathering information. Like in traditional games, you would pick up items. Here you pick up arguments, statements, quotes. And in the end, you have to use that to get the full story from a main source. So you kind of have to break that source and get the best results. And the first game we did, Palestine, was a lot similar to this, but we did all the mistakes that Guillermo talked about in the Heavy Rain in his long history. So this is less branching and branching in a more intelligent way. This is some of the issues that you run into, that you have to engage with as a player, as a journalist. There are different bosses and different missions that deals with different regions of the countries and different themes in those. In Mexico, it's about sweatshop, pollution, illegal workers. There's another mission on border crossings, immigrations. There's one in Bolivia about death slavery, one about the new elections, etc. And this is actually coming out in real shops in some countries. So far, mostly in the gas countries, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, but hopefully also the rest of Europe. Definitely a niche title in any supermarket, but nevertheless. When we started out, we were mostly focused on education, and I just wanted to show you a few quotes from the students and teachers that we have tested the game with. And maybe it's not so surprising, but almost all teachers and all students we talk to can see the obvious advantages and really like, on a conceptual level, this idea. There's a lot of practical barriers to actually using this in education, but when they sit down, play it, use it in a test experiment, they're really happy with it. And what they especially focus on is the fact that you as a student has to use your knowledge actively. So when you read a book or watch a television show or anything else, you have a passive reception of information. Even though you have to digest it, interpret it, you don't actually have to do anything with it. If you don't get what's on the first page, well, you can still read the next page. If you don't get what's going on in the computer game, you can't really get any further. So there's a very direct feedback, and you really have to use your knowledge in an active way. And what the students are acknowledging is that they appreciate the fact that they actually have to find out things for themselves. They have to be active, they have to acquire knowledge, they have to work things out for themselves, and they're quite convinced that they're actually learning better from this. The teachers are actually on the same page, at least in this sense. They also sense that students will get more out of this, being active, using knowledge, exploring knowledge, and also to a large extent bring this conflict, these issues, much closer than is possible with traditional teaching and medium. So I think that if we look at what Europe can offer in this space, I think that if we look to the US, we have a lot of entertainment titles. We also have these in Europe, and I think when you look at those entertainment titles, they're actually pretty much remediations, copies of exercise books, other print media, and they don't really take into advantage what we see games can do. They don't have these exploratory universes, they don't have clear consequences, feedback. Most entertainment titles are very, very simple games, they're very abstract, they don't have this entire virtual world to them. And I think that in the future we'll see much more of these virtual worlds, basically, that you can explore and learn from, where you have to use your knowledge, you have to engage with the knowledge, and that will make for much stronger learning experiences. So that was basically it. I hope there is time for questions. My contact details and some of the other work we're doing, like Alex, we're pretty much having a core business of doing client work, and then we're doing the other stuff out of our own pockets.